Hey everybody, this is Jorrel from Mintplex, joined by my co-founder,
Tim Karambet, probably the coolest way to say it.
Yeah, the coolest way to say it. And yeah, this is going to be our first episode of our hopefully weekly podcast. It's not really a real podcast. It's more of a, hey, let's do something that people who don't read our newsletter can go and listen to and kind of hear about the things that we're up to, as well as all of the really cool things that we've been doing in the past. And then on top of that, some of the news that maybe we only have access to that we're allowed to share, because we have a lot of alpha between Tim and I and within our group chat. Within all the
like
group
the
chats
greatest perk. Yeah, it's like the greatest perk of building in Web3 is the extreme alpha you get.
Yeah, it's like a lot. Like we know so much about what's happening right now and what's going to happen in the next like 6 to 9 months. And we figured that there are little teasers that we can go and share. And this is probably the best way to disseminate all this information, as well as, you know, me not having to slog every week to finish that newsletter post. So, but for today's first episode, we're just going to talk a little bit about like what this podcast is going to be for, as I briefly mentioned it. Second, just like why we started Mintplex. Tim has this whole pitch he usually gives all of our investor VCs and all of our new customers as well. And I figured we would have that captured in audio format. So if y'all ever question why we started this thing, you can always reference back to any of these audio clips. And then lastly, people have been asking us, why did you rebrand? And then also, not only why did we rebrand, but what's been going on with YC? Like, how was our experience there? And we'll briefly jump into that to conclude this episode. So with that, to start things off, I'll just briefly say the reason that we're starting this podcast is explicitly to describe everything that we're doing and all the cool little gimmicks and innovations that we have just within Mintplex in itself. Tim is like a monster of just ideas and amazing features. And it's kind of important that not only do we have it recorded like within our app itself, but just to give like, you know, people every single week, some of the features that we've been working on are concepting, and we can immediately get some feedback from people who do listen to this. And then, yes, the second and most important reason that we're doing this as well is that, man, like every week we just get all of this new information and all this new stuff about kind of like what our partners are up to that nobody like gets visibility into. And so that's kind of why we want to do this as well, just to make sure that anybody who is curious about what's going on can go and listen. But that's it. I don't know, Tim, is there any other thing why we're starting this? I think it's just fun, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, also it's like there's a whole lot of people that have kind of like platforms in this space, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And it's because they don't, and not to a fault of their own, they just literally just don't know the tech that's underlying all of the NFTs and stuff that they're buying. There's a whole lot of really interesting information there. And I think that just gets breezed over in any of your more popular spaces because they're not led by technical people that care to communicate about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's completely something I forgot. Like Tim and I consume so much content that is just really bad. And like within our group chats, we will actually just straight up roast the hell out of some of these like really bad takes. So we're just here to educate. We're here to inspire, and also just to get people excited about kind of the cool things that are coming up. Because I think there's also a lot of FUD in the space. And we're not people who FUD very often. We like I say, we like to make fun of stuff, but we're definitely not FUDding. So
yeah, none of this is FUD.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so with that's why we're doing this. And if you have any questions, just tell us, but ultimately we will, you know, try and make this as more, the most productive podcast you can possibly listen to. And so that being said, let's dive into probably the question that's on nobody's mind, but now will be in everybody's mind. Why did you start Mintplex? Why did you start Rampp, Tim? Let's settle it out here so nobody can ever ask again, please.
Yeah, it's so funny because like I have to give this same speech to like every single VC that we talk to, and the story, I don't know how it comes off to somebody who, you know, eventually, you know, may invest money into Mintplex, but our story really started out as one of vengeance. And it's mostly because I was like writing smart contracts. Because like the one thing that makes me the most annoyed about this entire space is that people act like smart contracts are like some esoteric language. It's like we're all trying to learn native Latin or something. Like it is not that hard. Like if you have any kind of programming ability that you are halfway sufficient in, like JavaScript, or maybe you're a Java person or like C++ or something like that, you can learn Solidity. Don't let anybody tell you like, oh, there's like tricks, blah, 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 gas optimization. Don't worry about that. You're overthinking it. Go look at popular code that's already being used from your favorite NFT project and go and just literally copy paste that code. Just walk through it line by line. Like people like to act like NFT contracts in specific are difficult. They are not. It is laughably simple. And a lot of people will charge you tens of thousands of dollars to get a basic NFT contract. Now, I'm not here trying to say that like, oh, you know, whoever did XYZ celebrity's contract and they made a bag off of it, that they did something wrong or they were grifting. They're not. There's always a need for some amount of custom contracts. That's why agencies are still around. What I wanted to solve with Mintplex was how do you fit that, you know, kind of Pareto rule of 80-20 kind of distribution, or even more than that, because pretty much everyone that I was doing private contract work, they all wanted the same thing. Their token looks different. What they do with their community varies. Maybe they do an IRL event or real merch. Doesn't matter. I wanted to address those people's needs so that they didn't have to pay $10,000 to get a smart contract and then tack on another $10,000 to do the whole minting experience. So that's originally what we started out doing. And that's actually what our V1 was about, to the unfortunate souls who had to use that interface.
Hey, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It was just a little learning curve even for me. No, I want to dive actually into a little bit what you just said there. How before the minting experience used to be like two separate little modules, right? Like before it was like, here's your smart contract, but then how the hell do you get somebody to interact with it? And that's like where you innovated on was the mint button, the stupidly powerful mint button we have.
Yeah, and I don't understand why, like, the smart contract is literally the least important part of your entire mint. And I think if you've launched an NFT project, that's very obvious. Oh, the smart contract part, it is functionally important, but it is the least important part. It is like, what I actually need is the smart contract. Yes, I need that on the chain that I'm minting on. What I really actually need is a website that people can just type into their browser or go to on their phone, click a button, and buy the damn NFT. It's like, for whatever reason, when we started this, no one was doing like a just catch-all mint button, just super easy, doesn't matter where the contract came from, just worked with it. I don't know why that was greenfield opportunity, but we definitely seized on that. And I mean, our mint button still to this day is like way more powerful than pretty much anybody else's. Actually, I can't even think of a single person who's can come close to ours.
Yeah, I still can't. I like any new players who release mint buttons, I still feel like they miss the mark on like the true capabilities of what this thing can do, right?
There's so much that can be done. And like they do like just the one thing where it's like, oh, it just executes a mint function. It's like, that's like so boring. Like you can do other stuff. Like there's so much more that we can pack into ours too that we'll be doing. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's future alpha. So anybody who's listening, if you get the privilege of listening to this, you'll hear that's coming. But let's dive into that earlier point. You know, you said that it was like a vengeance story, right? And we tell investors that all the time. They just laugh. They're like, oh, like man, Tim being, you know, that's like your first like initial like personality is like, oh my gosh, this guy's like out to get everyone, right? But like like I think listeners would be like really interested in hearing the most is that like you were charging like dirt money for these smart contracts. And like how much was like the average dev charging in like peak June 2021?
Oh, like peak hype, people were easily going to charge you like $5,000 to get at least a basic, and I mean ugly, minting site and a smart contract that probably also was not optimized that great. They just copy pasted it from Open Zeppelin and then gave you that. And they would charge you $5,000 for it. But you didn't know any better. So what are you to do?
Yeah, and then how much were you charging?
I was charging like $150. Yeah. So, yeah. And like the reason for that is because I was copy pasting code, but I was copy pasting code that I knew worked and that fit the client needs. So if they needed something small changed, yeah, sure. Just make a small change. Like, what's that? Like an hour of my time to get to like make that tiny modification, deploy it, and then spin up the Mint site. Like, nah, come on. Like, it was so simple. So like I wasn't charging that much because like ultimately, like imagine like some of the biggest players in the space right now in terms of like identity. Like think of even like your Bored Apes. Like you can go as big as that to like Cool Cats to like Alien Friends or some of these like well-known but smaller brands or smaller identities in the space. None of those people were some big blue check mark before NFTs. And if we don't enable those personalities to jump in and experiment, those brands never occur. Mm-hmm. And so some of the largest brands that we're going to see come out of this space are going to be people that nobody ever knew before. And hopefully they launched with our tool or really just anybody's tool that made the process so much more affordable for them to jump in to start building that community. That's really what we wanted to enable. And that's why I charged almost nothing.
So let's expound on that then a little bit, because I think one of the things that we talk to a lot of VCs on, and actually just users, I think one of the like users are like kind of surprised when they talk to us for the first time. They're like, oh, hey, these guys are actually really chill. And I think it has to do a lot with, you say affordability, right? But like really like at the core of it, it's accessibility. Like that's something that I hear you say like all the time is like, I want to make this so accessible, like so that like all of these people can never charge that amount ever again. Like that's like the vendor story.
And if they are going to charge that amount, you're getting your money's worth this time. Like that's the main point.
Yeah, so let's actually go into that a little more. I think because that'll explain, I think, a bit more about the consumer, right, or anyone who's listening about like where Mintplex like falls, in this process, right? Like Mintplex is at the core of it a smart contract generator. It's at the core of it, and we focus on like long tail value. And so if we were to remove the developer, like what is left? What is left of an NFT strategy? Like, what is launching an NFT? I think people are really just generally confused. Like, okay, what is the NFT process? And then, like, where does Mintplex fit into it? So
So if you were thinking of hiring a dev to get a smart contract, to get a Mint site, maybe to do some kind of like, I don't know, like a Shopify plugin or some other simple token gating or something like that, like you can just straight up fire that person or not even go look for them if you want Mintplex. Like don't even use that guy. Like I'm sure he's a good friend. It's maybe your cousin's friend or something like that. Like that's great. They can find work elsewhere, but they don't need you if you're going to, you don't need to hire them if you're going to use Mintplex. It's that simple. This opens the door for you as the NFT creator and the person who's launching this to go and do the marketing and the community aspect and all the pre-sale effort that actually results in you selling your project and you actually building that brand. That's the hard part. You can't automate that. You cannot automate authenticity. And that is what Web3 is all about. And so we'll handle all the tech stuff for you, help you get your images on IPFS. We also have people that can go and generate all 10,000 of your images for free. So like, don't even worry about costing that. Just get the layers, hire your artist, compensate them fairly, and then worry about building the brand of your project. Everything else dev-wise gets handled through Mintplex.
Okay, so dev-wise, okay, we got you your smart contract, we got you your Mint button or your Mint site. We got you all this, all these cool little tools and gimmicks in order to like, give value to your your fans or your community, right? So what goes into a pre deployment or pre-mint strategy? Like let's dive into that a little bit. Like
So the biggest thing is, first off, it's like traditional marketing, right? At least you see that in the space. You'll see a lot of spam, right? Like I'm sure everyone gets a freaking DM from some rando every single day that's like, oh, check out this awesome project. That does not work. That is not how you build authenticity. What you actually need, in my opinion, is an objective. Like, what is the thing that you are leading up to? Like for Alien Friends, I think their initial kind of like big milestone was like, oh, we mint out. We're going to throw a rager in LA. Like, I literally think that was their main thing. And then COVID hit, so they had to pivot away from that. Mm-hmm. And like that initial dream, though, is also what sold everybody on it. It was just literally like, I just want to get together with a bunch of other people that are in the same space so we can talk, just talk talk our shit and just like have a good time and go throw a rager. And some other people go another direction. Maybe they're built around, redeemable items, like just some cool piece of merch, or maybe an artist who, built a following, right? It starts selling like physical prints of whatever they're doing, but they use NFTs to do it. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to do these things, but it's all about the strategy. It's all about what did the community get out of it. Having an NFT that just looks cool is not enough. It was never enough. And so I think people miss that all the time. You have to let people know about it. You have to market. You have to go cross promote. You have to do all of these things. Can't automate that.
So you're telling me that all those bots on Twitter don't guarantee that my brand like won't sell out? Are you telling me that if I don't have a pre-existing dedicated community that like is actually vibing with my vision, that no one will care about my drop regardless of the size of my following? AKA Chris Brown, what?
Yeah, like Chris Brown's marketing team put no effort into promoting their drop. And like, that's exactly what happened. Like everything tech wise, completely A+, all would have worked if the demand was there. Why wasn't the demand there? That's not the fault of the devs. That's not the fault of anybody. That's the fault of the marketing team, because they just expected, oh, this big name will carry us. Okay, well, like, what are you going to give these people? And even if it is kick ass, which for a Chris Brown fan, actually, the reward there would have been quite great. They never promoted it to those fans. So like, how would the fan have ever even known that was an opportunity? They would, like, you have to market these things. Like, as crazy as that sounds, I know it sounds crazy. You literally just have to freaking market this thing. Like,
yeah. And like to kind of expand on that a little bit, Tim, like when we say marketing, right? When we say like marketing to your audience or marketing, that means a completely different thing in Web3. And like these Web2 brands, like, listeners don't know, but we get quite a lot of inbounds for people who are like, who represent, mid-sized Web2 companies, right? Yeah. And they just don't get it. They really just don't get what Web3 marketing is. Like, what is it? What is so different in your eyes, Tim? That's like,
it's super high touch. Like it's very, very high touch, because what you're also ultimately trying to do is honestly, I think it's more similar to try to raise votes, like as a politician, than it is to try to get buyers for your NFT project.
Oh, interesting.
Because with current web, like think about it like you're a SaaS product or something on the internet, right? You just pour money into Google AdWords and YouTube and like Twitter ads, and like anywhere you can buy ad space, you're putting your ads. But like when I worked at Product Hunt makes a significant amount of volume off of its ad slots. And it works because those are SaaS products. If an NFT, for whatever reason, was allowed to or did put a slot on Product Hunt, that would be the worst money that they would ever spend, because that's not targeted. What Web3 marketing looks like is reaching out to a community that is maybe like tangential to yours, right? Like, and then being like, hey, can we do a Twitter Spaces together? Or, hey, this is a tool that I'm going to be using. Can you guys hop on a space with us and just talk about how we're going to use your tool, blah, blah, blah. People like to listen to ideation in this space, because a lot of the ideation is also a lot of alpha. And you also get an idea of who the hell's running this thing. Does it sound like they give a shit? Because that's really important. And again, it's like trying to go solicit votes. No one's going to vote for the guy that literally just like wrote his name into the ballot box, and you're there at the ballot box and you're like, who the hell is that? Like, no, it's the guy who was out there shaking hands and kissing babies. Like, that's literally who it was. Like, that's who you have to go. That's how you have to actually go and market in Web3. You actually have to go out there and meet people and like cross promote with them, engage with them. Literally, you can't just like tweet storm. Like, it doesn't work.
And that's the thing too, is like you make a great point there. Like, like kissing babies, shaking hands or something, or shaking babies, kissing hands.
No, definitely not that one.
Something like that. One of those things, right? But the real interesting point I think you bring about that is that like it's very much like a one-on, like you said, high touch, right? Like you're going in and you're like getting to know like almost your first set of community members. Like the reason that a lot of these politicians like do so well, right? And for background listeners, like Tim and I run this thing called Senate and House Stock Watcher, Congress Stock Watcher. Weird insert there. It has nothing to do with this, but like what the stuff that we see with like politicians and whatnot is like they have a very like almost like a fan base. Like people are there and out to bat for you. And like you can kind of almost know if you're going to, you know, have a shot at winning, right? Because of how fired up your fan base is. Like a lot of the projects I think that we've seen mint out, like it's because they kind of already know they're going to, even before they even launch the smart contract. They already know, hey, we already got X, Y, and Z down. We just cross our fingers that the people that we've shaken hands with like are going to come through. But like for the most part, they kind of have an expected volume of like, okay, these are the amount of people that I've reached out to, I've talked to, and I kind of know they're going to come through. Like, I kind of know, you know?
Also, the space is just much more mature now. Like people understand what it looks like to look at a good project, and it has everything to do with the people running it.
Everything. Oh my gosh. Everything. Yeah. I mean, how many projects have we seen with like not doxed founders now? And like they just don't work because nobody trusts them. Like,
and maybe the person that's running it is undoxed but trustworthy, but it doesn't matter because all the other undoxed rugs ruined it for everybody.
Yeah.
So like, if it's not something you're willing to put your name against, you shouldn't launch a project.
Yeah. So, well, on a different episode, we're going to talk, we'll eventually talk about like, you know, the evolution of like, you know, NFT projects becoming businesses. Cause I think that's an entirely fascinating like insight that we're getting. And we probably have the most alpha on how this is transforming. So, you know, this is your cue to go and follow us, like, or subscribe, wherever the hell you're finding this thing. Because we're going to be sharing a lot of really interesting information you probably won't get anywhere else. But let's switch gears a little bit here. Because this is great. Like, I think all listeners will be happy to know that you're in it for the vengeance and in it to, you know, in it to go and just like, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's accessibility and removing the middleman. That's what we're about. That's really all it is, right? But let's dive into kind of like the more recent events and stuff that we've been up to. Like we got a lot of questions about like, hey, why'd you guys like rebrand? Like what happened? And then I think that easily segues into a little bit about the YC experience we had.
It does, yeah.
I mean, actually, it's almost 1-to-1 almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like Tim, what happened? Like what happened? Why did we rebrand? And then how long did it take for us to come up with the new name?
Oh, so God, that was a laborious. That was so hard to do. The reason we even started with Rampp is because, again, this was like a mission of like vengeance, where I had all this like internal tools that I was using to turn people's projects around. I just literally wanted to just like make a wrapper around all of them and just be like, hey, like you already know what you want as a project owner. Just like connect your wallet and just like deploy it and own it, and then you're done. Like, and it was that simple. And so I was just like, oh, okay, like I don't know what to name this thing. Like, let me just go and name it like, I don't know, it's like an on-ramp. So I'll just name it Rampp. Oh, Rampp domain is taken. I'll just put another P, which is very like 2009. It's very like 2009 of me. But like, yeah, I was just like, oh, I'll just put another thing on it. Yeah, that turned out to be like a horrible idea. Because like, only did I find out later that there's like a fucking Series D credit card company that's like the talk of the town in Silicon Valley called Rampp with 1P. And then when we joined YC, there are like 4 or 5 other companies with the word Rampp in their name. No fault to them. I don't know if they're having the same struggles, but like we couldn't be a part of that crowd. Also, like if anybody ever looks alphabetically, we'd want to rank higher. So M helps over R, at least where we were, you know, better than calling like Z Dex or something like that. Who fucking knows what we call ourselves? But yeah, like it's like how if you look in the phone book, like the first listing is like 111A appliances or something like that, and it's because they get put at the very top because numbers before letter. It's stupidest stuff. So the whole thing with like, oh god, it was like with Mintplex, like trying to figure out what we were going to name ourselves. Which we've gotten great reception on the name. Actually, a lot of people have told us like they love the rebrand, blah blah blah, which I think is quite nice. Yeah, man, how far? Like, I feel like that was like we've done a lot of like tough days. That was probably like the most like mentally taxing day when we were just like, okay, we know we need to rebrand and we need to do it before demo day because otherwise it's going to be a shit show. And I also don't want to jump in to like 4762 VC calls, all having to be like, oh no, Rampp with 2 Ps. Like we're going to look like idiots. So yeah, God, that was a very laborious day.
Yeah. We spent Gosh, like we even tried to table it. Like I remember I was sending you stuff because what prompted me to, because I was the one who initiated it as like, Tim, we have to change this name. And I was actually talking to Tim Connors this morning, right? 101.xyz, great guy.
Plug,
just plug him in. Love him. He's a great dude. But when we were at his event, like weeks ago, I just remember the face on somebody when I was like, yeah, I work at Rampp. Like, oh yeah, I co-founded Rampp. They're like, oh my gosh, congratulations on your season. It's like, no.
No.
That's not us. Like, don't. And the thing is, it's like at that moment, I was like, Tim, like, we have to change this name, because that person I was talking to, I believe, like, you know, she wasn't even in the crypto space, right? And so the first thing was like, okay, like that name is just being conflated with all these other, you know, potential Web2 companies. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going to suck so much. And so that's why, like, on that Thursday, because, you know, we had all these other priorities. And then on Thursday, I was like, you know, I'm going to be working at a cafe today anyway. And like, there's no meetings. So we may as well like hack on this. I was like, Tim, we got to change this name, man. And then it was just all day, like us going back and forth.
The names you were sending me were the most dog shit names. Those were the worst fucking names I have ever heard in my life. It's like when someone names a dog like George. It's like, what the fuck? Like, it just...
Oh my god!
Sorry to anybody that has a dog named George out there, but
yeah. I mean, we love you, all the Georges out there. Trust me. No, it was funny because like I had some good ones in the beginning, but like I think I got discouraged at a certain point. I was like, oh my gosh, like none of these names, they're all like $15,000 domains, or there's like that, you know, and then like, gosh, like some of them were like $150,000, and I was like, hey Tim, like, you know, we could probably like pay for that, right? And I was like, well, there goes our burn rate. Like,
you know, we're bankrupt now, but we got a good name.
Yeah, exactly. Like then we have to explain that to our accountant and be like, hey, our burn rate this month is $50,000, and like that's why, you know, it was just like, ugh. But
I on principle, just straight up on principle, I do not want to give a domain squatter money. Like on straight principle, I don't want to do it.
I think a lot of people don't actually know that you actually ran a small business called Dynadomains for a while.
Yeah, right? I did. And that had to do with people. It basically, TLDR, you could geographically lease an expensive domain. So like basically you could own like apples.com in like a specific area of Georgia, or maybe the entire state. And if anyone visited the domain in Georgia, visited apples.com, it'd get redirected to your business's website. So you could use the brand recognition of the big domain for your small business. I had 0 customers. So excellent. Tech work though. So
yeah, well, it's 0 customers, but you talked to a lot of people in the
domain owners. Yeah, actually, you know, I think I had it was $30 million worth of domains on the platform, but the buy side just wasn't there. Mostly because a two-sided marketplace, if you're a founder and you're thinking about doing a two-sided marketplace, stop. Just whatever you're doing right now, stop and simplify your idea and focus on just one side, because you do not want to build a two-sided marketplace. It's very hard for your first business,
I mean,
for sure.
Like, gosh, there's not just like that. I mean, it's hard enough for us to find, you know, customers, right? Like, imagine if we were also the ones going out of our way to find the people to mint. Like, imagine for Mintplex, like we had to go in, help them create the contract, and be like, hey guys, here's your supply. Okay, we'll bring the demand in too. That would be crazy. But no, but because of that though, like that was the reason why, like, Down Domains was like, there's no freaking way I'm going to give, especially because you've met these people, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to give them money. There's just no way.
Oh yeah. Like think of your regular run-of-the-mill NFT degen, same exact dude on domain squatting. It's the same person.
Because they'll hit a jackpot one day and they're like, oh yeah, this person's totally going to give me $50,000.
There's too many success stories in domain squatting for anyone to just bat it off. So yeah, I get why they do it, but I don't see it as a legitimate form of income.
Yeah, that's just to give all the listeners out there that's how much conviction we have about, you know, making sure our business practices are as clean and as ethical as possible. So that is why. It is more of a vengeance story why we're ethical rather than it is because we're ethical. We're like, we don't want these people to succeed because it's so bad.
It's not enough that we succeed, they must fail.
Well, that being said, right? So going on from there, we got Mintplex. That was a whole just like, that was a whole
sniped our
slew of
own
things.
ENS.
Yeah, we sniped our own ENS, and I mean that's actually a story for another time. I think, especially when we have some of our you can tell that story when we release this upcoming feature we have. Because I think it's very relevant, right? It's very relevant.
Yeah, it's extremely relevant.
Yeah,
God, that was so annoying.
Yeah, that one experience inspired us to go and do some crazy stuff that by the time this comes out, it won't be, it'll probably be announced or whatever. But
yeah.
YC, right? So Mintplex.
Yeah, YC.
We changed the name, Demo Day. Just TLDR. We can spend an entire episode talking about YC, but people are probably where the hell have you guys been for the last 2 months?
Yeah, we've been trying to ship, and obviously we have been shipping. One of the things that when you work with us if you launch a project with us, our execution speed is just straight up unmatched, straight up. We just ship. That's just what we do. We're like FedEx, we're shipping. Just that slowed down for probably definitely the last 30 days for sure. Maybe the last 45. Mostly because YC, it ramps up and it reaches a crescendo pretty quickly, actually, I'd say. And from there, you are just heads down, business focused, which is great because there's obviously a fine line. You got to build and you got to architect essentially your entire business. You got to map all of that out so you can be more robust. No point building features nobody's going to need. And so, absolutely. That is where we wound up. Also, if, just fundraising is a full-time job. People say it all the time. And I was thinking, fundraising, how much time can it? Nah, it is a full-time job. It is a 40+ hour week. You are heads down talking the entire time. The entire month of August, I was talking to people the entire month.
There was a day I remember where your voice was so shot. I can't remember which day that was, but you were dude.
It's probably the first week of August.
Yeah, it was you had a vocal fry that one morning, and I was like, dude, you just wake up, and he's like, no, I just talked to VCs all day yesterday, and I was like, oh no, Tim, no, you have to talk to more today. You can't have vocal fry. I'm like, oh my gosh, but yeah, no. So to TLDR it, right at the end of this entire process, we still shipped though, all the stuff, we had, what were just to end out this our first episode, but during this entire thing, you were still able to ship out features. What were the top 3 features you shipped out during our raise?
I believe one of the great ones would be the fiat integration in the mint button for Winter. That was great. One-click minting sites. People don't want to go to Squarespace, and I don't blame them. For a mint site, it should be a very simple experience. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the more complicated it is, the worse it'll be. 9 times out of 10. Mm-hmm. So now you can just go to deploy an entire mint site. It's a pretty basic template. You can modify some of the stuff on it, and then you have a mint site. End of story. ERC20 payments, no one has picked that up yet for whatever reason. We're still the only people. You can mint with ERC20. There's some people on Mintplex right now that are experimenting with that, and some people who have done it with the Optimism token. I thought that was awesome. That's a good use of an ERC20, a token that, maybe has one singular use to do something, but it's use it to mint your NFT. You can do that, by the way, with Mintplex. I don't know if people didn't know that. I feel like we promoted it pretty well, but
it's just once again, use case, man. I don't think people understand the power. They don't understand the power. I think there's a lot of people who are afraid because of the ICO, the ICO craze last year, and so
makes sense.
Coins. It's
this is
scary.
Outside of that. This is outside of that.
Yeah. So once again, but to rank those 3, which would you say is your favorite out of those 3, though?
I definitely think, my favorite to build was the one-click mint site, because I know that solves so much pain for so many people. Because it's yes, our regular embed button is just a embed. You can just put that into a website, but some websites, they iframe stuff, makes it look ugly. This just it's totally controlled. It'll work. Just put your domain on it. Done deal. Your mint is going to happen. That is my favorite because I know the need that it solves. I think the one that is most useful is the fiat integration. I think that because that provides an easy on-ramp for people to mint with credit card, because that's just such a powerful thing. Integrating there was very, 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 that was probably, I think, that one was probably the most powerful, but the most fun was definitely the one-click mint site.
Yeah,
that opened the doors. That opens the doors to so many cool things.
We have my god, that opens the doors to a lot of really cool things that we have in the pipeline. But anyways, yeah, I mean, this is great. I really appreciated us hopping on for the first episode of many. So yeah, once again, if you haven't already, go and follow us on all of our socials. Okay, we're at Mintplex NFT now, no longer Rampp. We're gonna be ramping up. I don't know, it's weird to say that, but we're ramping up all of our socials, all of our marketing content, and just basically everything that you would need in order to make sure that your mint becomes successful as well as your smart contract. So make sure to visit us everywhere. We're on LinkedIn. If you want to get the most up-to-date things about what we're up to, follow us on Twitter. Otherwise, this will be posted both on our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts, whatever the heck it may be. And we will go and check in with all of you in the next week with some more spicy alpha. So anything else, Tim, before for the listeners?
Nope, that's it. But I guess as always, if you're going to launch a project, please do it on testnet first. Please do. I don't know how many times we have to tell people this.
Oh man,
we have testnet. We are like the only people who have fully testnet support across whatever you can do on mainnet, you can do on testnet. People still just go straight to mainnet. You are lunatics. Do not do that. Please test.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I say that in every Twitter Spaces. I forgot. I always say that. I was like, oh no, Tim got me on my own game here. All right, awesome. Well, then everybody have a great rest of whatever time you're dealing with, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Later.